In this episode, Peter talks with Kavita Krishnaswamy. Kavita is a Ph.D. candidate in computer science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, working with Dr. Tim Oates. Kavita is a Google Lime Scholar and Microsoft Research Fellow. She's both a Ford Foundation Predoctoral and National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellow. She's also worked at the National Science Foundation's Engineering Research Center, Quality of Life Technology Center in Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh, and IBM Business Consulting Services. Kavita is a professional researcher with a physical disability. She's motivated by a powerful innate force. Autonomy is the soul of independent daily living that she's achieved with the advancement of technology. Her research involves the development of robotic systems to provide assistance and increase independence for people with disabilities. She is developing several prototype robotic systems that will support transferring, repositioning, and personal care with a focus on accessible user interfaces for control that are feasible for persons with severe disabilities. And this is the main topic of our discussion in this episode. This is Stemiverse podcast episode 57. Stemiverse is a podcast produced by Tech Explorations. Our mission is to help educators become awesome at teaching STEM, be it at home or in the classroom. Whether you are a professional or casual teacher teaching in a classroom or a parent or caretaker teaching at home, this podcast brings you the knowledge and experiences of practitioners, academics, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners who are passionate about education and strive every day to help our children prepare for life in a world of radical change and, why not, abundance. Here we are in another episode of Stemiverse, and I have with me Kavita Krishnaswamy. Did I say that correctly, Kavita?
Yes, Peter, you did. Thank you.
How would you pronounce, especially your surname?
Krishnaswamy.
Krishnaswamy, yeah. Thank you for that. I did practice a little bit, but I wasn't sure how to say it. So I want to welcome you to our podcast, and I want to acknowledge that you are, well, first of all, in a very cold place right now. You are in the northeastern of the United States. I'm here in Sydney. You are expecting a bit of snow today. I'm expecting a bit of rain, but it's okay. Same planet. So we're using this amazing technology to connect. I thought that you are an extremely interesting person to interview on our podcast because of the topic of your research and of your background and your life situation. So I'd like to give you a little bit of time to talk about yourself, a little bit of your personal history that brings you to where you are now, and then we can drill into your work.
Sure. First of all, thanks, Peter, so much for inviting me to speak at your podcast. It's an honor, and I'm very humbled to share about my life, my experiences, and my future in some snapshot.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I can start off by saying I'm a Ph.D. candidate at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and my advisor is Dr. Tim Oates. Mm-hmm. And I'm specifically focused on my research that focuses on developing assistive robotics to help people with disabilities and seniors, the aging population in particular, and to try to find ways to increase their independence and find ways that we can increase their quality of life. So that's my focus.
Yeah. And that's one thing I should mention, if that's okay, is that you are a person with a physical disability, right? And I guess that adds another dimension in the work that you do.
Yes, Peter. So I'm a person with a physical disability, and the nature of my condition, it's spinal muscular atrophy. It's a family of muscular dystrophy. So it's a neuromuscular disorder. So it limits my ability to move my arms and legs, and I need 24/7 care support just to achieve my activities of daily living. So I rely on others for help. And right now, my parents are also aging, and my mom is my primary caregiver. So it's even twice as hard because she has to take care of her own health issues and take care of me.
Yeah. It is a lot of people living around us have disabilities to one extent or the other. Not everybody is the same, especially as we age. I personally am familiar with disability that my grandmother has, who is, I won't say her age because she doesn't like talking about that. She doesn't allow me to do that. But she is confined on a wheelchair, like a lot of other people in the nursing home where she lives. So I can see it firsthand how dependent these people are to others. And of course, in your case, it is not because of your age that you are confined on a wheelchair, but because of it's a disease, right? It's not an injury that you have.
Yes. It's a genetic condition.
Genetic.
So I was born with it.
Yeah.
So it's a part of my identity now. And, as a child, I really worried that I couldn't walk or run. And it was very challenging for me to really understand what was wrong with me because I saw my younger brothers running and walking, playing, right? And I couldn't do all of those things. So it really didn't really help me to understand what or why I was different.
Yeah.
So it took a while for me to understand that. And after I understood, I really accepted my challenges and limitations. You can use things like, assistive technologies on the computer, touchpad or trackball mouse, voice recognition to speak. So all of those assistive technologies helped me to go through schooling, finish high school.
Yeah.
And that gave me a perspective, like, with some assistance, like with something that could help me, my skills can be, as equal as to somebody that does not have a disability. So that gave me some hope. So I thought to myself, if this were possible through computing, it could be the same through other technologies, like robotics, right? Using similar control mechanisms, I should be able to be a little bit more physically independent. And, another challenge is there's a huge challenge with a shortage of nurses. It is very difficult to find caregivers.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how it is in your country, but here it's very challenging because, first of all, medical insurance cannot cover 24/7 care at home. Maybe if I were to move into a nursing home, but then I would be away from my family. I wouldn't be able to stay at home.
Yeah.
But to find help at home, it's very challenging.
And you're also at a very productive age, right? It is the age where your mind is active and you want to do things, you want to design technology.
Yes.
So you can't really be at an environment where there's, in a nursing home, for example, where you are away from all the tools that you need, the computers and the specialist care.
And nobody wants to be in a nursing home in their 20s or 30s.
Absolutely.
Right? That's not their age. Your peers are not going to be there in the nursing home.
Exactly.
Right? You won't be able to have a
it's hard to find inspiration.
Right.
In my mind, Stephen Hawking comes to mind, right? And looking at how he was assisted by technology to produce the amazing body of work that he did. I'm now coming back to you, and I'm thinking that just like him, just like you, there's probably a lot of other people in similar situations where they have a brilliant mind, but they need a robot. By that, I mean some kind of assistive technology that can help them just break loose of the body, of the, the limitations that the body confines them to a chair, and just use the brain to teach, learn, create in the world. Is that the feeling that you have as well? Is that like what the role of these technologies is?
Yes, definitely. Stephen Hawking is a huge inspiration to me. I mean, his condition and my condition are almost similar. ALS and SMA have similar symptoms. So I understand, what he must have went through, right? But still, he was able to use his mind for greater purposes.
Yes.
And especially in sciences. And I'm really interested in the sciences, technology. This whole STEM aspect is because I think that could really bring the greatest impact to humanity by making good progress.
Yeah, and we are now, wanted or not, or for better or worse, I think for much, much better, is our fate as humans is intertwined with that of technology. We really need to advance at similar rates if we want to go forwards and succeed as a species. Like, technology is our future.
Yes, definitely. And every technology has become a part of our daily lives now.
Yeah.
So when we can do that, and because everybody can rely on this aspect of telepresence, like being anywhere remotely, right? That can even bring a greater change to our society, so I think that's very important that we see advancement in all aspects throughout the world.
Absolutely. I wanted to switch slightly and just mention that you were recommended that I will bring you on as a guest to our podcast by Andra Kay, who is another, or he's in the world of robotics as well. She was interviewed in episode 49. So I wanted to mention that. And then to congratulate you again, because you were recently named one of 5 women to watch after 40 years old by New Mobility magazine, which probably most of us, it's a magazine that we probably don't know. But these 5 women, just like you, have some sort of physical disability, but they are doing amazing things. So congratulations. And I wanted to ask you, was it something specific that you've done, perhaps in your research, that prompted New Mobility magazine to give you this honor? Or was it perhaps your whole life's work up to now?
Yes, I want to also, first of all, thank Andra for helping me to meet you, Peter, because that gave me the opportunity to have this experience on the podcast. So thanks, Andra. And I wanted to mention, the ability to take part in the New Mobility recognition of the top 5 women, right?
Yeah.
So that came as a result of, their recognition of seeing my work and seeing my progress towards increasing independence for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention, I was recently recognized by the Baltimore Sun as well for being in the top 25 women in Baltimore to look out for. So that all happened this year. I'm really grateful for both Baltimore Sun and New Mobility for recognizing my efforts.
That's great.
It just gives me a lot of pressure because that means I have to work harder to make all of this happen.
Yeah, and you've got plenty more to do. So maybe actually, I was about to ask you about the future, but I think we should stay in the past for a little longer and then move into the future.
Okay.
So just for our audience, could you give us like a summary, some examples of the work that you've done in the area of robotics for people with physical disabilities that can help them in some ways? Just some examples so we can understand your work.
Okay, one project I was a part of was controlling a robotic arm in the kitchen that can open cabinets, turn the faucet on. And this was at the University of Pittsburgh with Dr. Dan Ding, working with her on the kitchen bot project. This was part of helping, increase independence for veterans, to increase it by creating a accessible interface on a tablet so that they can control this kitchen robotic arm to do tasks of things.
So the device contains a tablet, like an iPad with a touch screen.
Yes.
And it's got a mechanical arm, or I guess
yes,
arms,
a mechanical arm that's on a track.
So if you want to open up a cupboard and take a can of spaghetti out of it, you can provide the input on the screen, and then the robot will interpret any movement, take the can out, right?
Right. You can click on, you don't have to give it exact up and down directions. You can do that if you want, but just by clicking on the picture of the cabinet, which is going to be shown in the tablet, the robotic arm will perform the localization itself, do the path planning itself, and go to that cabinet, open the door, take a can of, let's say, I don't know, coffee, to put it on the stove and turn the stove on. and try to pour it in the cup and serve.
Okay, that sounds fairly advanced. Like as an engineer now, I think about all the technologies that are part of a robot like that. Like there's a lot of intelligence in it. There's a user interface, of course. There is the electrical system and batteries. There is the visual aspect of recognizing objects. Is there voice control as well?
In that project, we did not work on voice. But in another project that I was part of at UMBC with Dr. Oates and Dr. Ravi Kuber, we worked on using a brain-computer interface, voice, keyboard, and mouse to try to compare those 4 inputs in order to move an avatar, right? To move the avatar's arm by repositioning it using these 4 input devices and compare to see which one was the most effective.
Yeah. Wow.
And this was just through a desktop application.
Yeah. So this particular robot would help around the kitchen. But I think you've got, I've seen some pictures of other robots that you've made that that help people get in and out of bed, for example, or in and out of wheelchair, right?
Yes, I have a number of prototypes that I've designed to specifically help with mobility in bed, such as, repositioning arms and legs inside, when they're laying in bed or sitting up.
Yeah.
And also help them to transfer from the bed to the wheelchair or from the wheelchair to the bed. Those are like transferring robotic devices. Traditionally, what's been used is Hoyer lifts. It's like a type of thing.
Yeah,
a person wears
in nursing homes.
Right, probably. But there's no control given to the person that's really in this thing, right?
And you need 2 people to operate them.
Right. So I don't understand how it's effective. You need 2 people still, and the person sitting in the, using the device feels very uncomfortable. So the prototypes I've designed, so I have in mind that the person does not need a caregiver. The person themselves, with minimal assistance, can transfer themselves from the bed to the chair with the robotic device. And full control is full control is given to the user.
Yeah, because I think your goal is independence in the end of the day.
Yes. And the challenge for me is to safety, because no matter how much intelligence we put into the software or how reliable or robust the hardware is, the aspect we have to put together is safety factors.
Yep.
The environmental conditions are so dynamic. The robot has to be intelligent, be dynamic in order to adapt to these changes and compensate for any differences in the environment and intelligently make those decisions to create maximum safety for the user.
Yeah. So are those devices available for people to purchase, I guess, and use?
My plan is very soon.
Yeah.
As of now, they don't exist in the market now. That there's a great need for people worldwide to have these devices. And I'm working extremely very hard to try to bring it to the market as soon as possible.
I think you have sponsors from the industry, don't you? Like Google, I think.
Yes, Google, Microsoft have supported our research, and the National Science Foundation in the US has supported our research. IEEE.
Oh, wow. They would be interested, of course, to commercialize this technology and make it available to as many people as possible.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Yeah. As our populations are aging, like Japan, for example, is an example, Europe, and European populations are aging as well. Like these problems are only going to amplify, and there simply are not enough nursing homes and caregivers and hoists and lifters for everybody. I'm thinking 20 or 30 years in the future. So your machines will be there to provide assistance, badly needed assistance, to improve quality of life.
Another aspect of my research that's very important to me is the ability for the person with a disability to help others. For example, I want to be able to remotely control a robot in a different location to help somebody else. So a person maybe that has, I guess, more limitations than I do, but that cannot have the ability to use their voice to control a robot. Me remotely connecting through this web interface that I'm going to develop, I can control that robot in their location to help them by
Yes.
using, my control. Because I guess two scenarios I can think about is we can control, the Mars rover or Curiosity robot in Mars from here, right? From Earth to Mars, right? And we can do that successfully. And also when we have surgeries, right? There's remote surgeries that doctors are performing from one location to another. So in these two situations, we can do it remotely. So why not use the same abilities and technologies to help people that need assistance?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about using mind to control devices. Like I've got an interest in drones, for example. One of my courses are about how to build a drone, but I'm very aware that some people have gone to the next step, and instead of using, the classic radio control junction between the user and the drone itself, they use mind control. So it's very eerie to see a flying machine react to something that we can't see, because we can't see the controller's thinking. But the controller says, I'm going to land now. And then the drone lands without the human controller moving their hands. Or the controller says, I'm going to instruct the drone to turn left. And then the drone turns left, again with no physical movement. And that is very, very strange. But it is happening at that level. So disability and building robots to help is definitely something very useful. It's happening.
Like even if I wanted to, push something away from me, like a mosquito coming to bite me, right? I can't do that right now. So imagine if there's a robotic arm near me, right?
Yeah.
Can shoo away the mosquito.
Just, think about it.
But something very simple like that. There was actually a situation where my advisor and I were speaking on Skype, right? And my parents just stepped outside, and a mosquito just came at that perfect time to bite me, right? But my caregivers just left for the day, right?
Yeah.
They just left for the day. My parents just stepped outside. The perfect opportunity. I don't know how it calculates the mosquito, right? It must be very smart. But my advisor was able to see the mosquito bite me, and he was helpless. He couldn't help me.
Yes.
Right? Remotely, even though he could see everything, he couldn't help me.
Yeah.
So in those precise situations, remote assistance would be great.
Perfect. Yeah. It's coming. I know you're working on it, so it is going to be real soon. I wanted to, because we are a STEM or STEAM education podcast, I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey in education and what that brought you where you are now, a roboticist, right? So obviously you are a roboticist now, and your research is in robotic technologies that help people with physical disabilities. Did you always want to become a roboticist? And in particular, have you ever thought about, if you didn't have your physical disability, would you still want to be a roboticist or something else perhaps?
Well, education is my life. I really love academics. I'm really passionate about learning. I think that keeps me occupied with my time, and it gives me less time worrying about my challenges.
So you always wanted to be a roboticist?
Uh-huh.
How far back can you remember?
I think, I'm trying to think. I guess in high school, I had a passion of getting all A's. Like I really wanted to ace every course. So I'm very proud that I could get a 4.0 GPA. That means getting an A in all of the classes from 9th to 12th.
Science in particular, or did you have favorites?
Yes, I really enjoyed the sciences, technologies, computers, all the STEM.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I could really put my talent in that area. And in high school, I was a part of the mathematics, engineering, science achievement program. In that particular time, we were given the opportunity to work on a robotic project in high school. And at that time, no one was interested. It really perplexed me. So I volunteered to be the first one to take part in that robotic project.
Right.
And since I couldn't do the building of the robot myself, I requested my younger brothers, to be my hands. So I was the brain, and I instructed them to build the robot according to my instruction.
Remote control.
Yeah. So they helped me build the robot, and at that time we won third place in the state of Maryland on the robotic project we built. It was like a race. Each of the robots that was built from each school, they have this race of who crosses the line first. And the robot we built won third place in our state. So I'm very happy and proud of that. That was in high school.
So you're in high school now. So you're obviously your physical problems, movement, control of your hands. You didn't have control of hands at that point, but your mind was there, was active. You were learning, and with the help of your family, you were able to build robots. I guess. And
my particular teacher that was involved, her name was Mrs. Marie Boston. She was very understanding and very encouraging me. She didn't say no or discourage me, saying, "You don't even have the physical ability to build a robot. How can you do this?" Right? She actually encouraged me, saying, "You can do it, and we can all help you." So, for many weekends, she would come from her home to school to help us on the project.
Wow, it's amazing.
So that really helped me, right?
That goes to show how pivotal a teacher can be in the life of a student.
Yes, it was very...
To go over and beyond.
Encouraging.
Beyond the call of duty.
Because she didn't look at my physical challenges. She still encouraged me to do something that was beyond my abilities. And, that really encouraged me to go to college too.
So could you describe what was happening at your school? Because your disability was extreme in a way, like you need to be in a wheelchair, so all the classrooms that you'd had to go to had to be accessible. I guess doing exams would be challenging. Participating in activities in labs and so on. What was your school like to accommodate all these special needs that you had?
It was challenging. For me, it was more of the strain, actually, of being in class for the whole day. So the school from our county was very understanding, accommodating by helping me be homeschooled for half of the day, and I would go into school for the other half of the day.
Yeah.
So that type of balance helped me because I was able to rest and learn at the same time, and also go to school for the rest of the half of the day, where the most important I could interact with my peers as well.
Yes, social contact.
And even, writing on paper, right? Writing on paper was very challenging for me, so I was given additional time to work on assignments to help accommodate me.
Still used pen and paper, but just needed additional time? Yeah.
And because SMA is progressive, in high school I had the ability to write by hand, but gradually I lost my ability to write.
Yeah.
I was able to even use a standard mouse and a standard keyboard before, and gradually that also declined. And I became accustomed to using an on-screen keyboard to type through the mouse. And I switched to using a trackball mouse instead of a standard mouse.
Yeah.
A trackball mouse is a inverted mouse. You've probably seen it, right?
Yeah, my wife uses one. But that's because you have, you can still move one finger, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
So you can use that to scroll the ball.
So I can use that with my one finger.
Yeah.
Right.
So school was very supporting.
Yes.
How could you do it otherwise? Your family was very supporting. See all these people that come together to help. And then you are very interested in science. And I assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that helps you all these difficult years of, your body transitioning and losing capability, but your mind staying strong, and science focusing gives you a place to focus all your energy.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It seems like it's the opposite. The more the body declines, the more
your mind gets stronger.
I get the focus, right? Yes.
Yeah.
It's a strange correlation, but that's what has happened.
Yeah. Was, going into college, was that like a natural conclusion for you, or were you thinking that maybe you can't do it?
Yes, I really never was told I should even go to college. Like, no one spoke to me about it. I saw all of my friends apply to colleges. Even when they spoke amongst themselves, they would say, oh, you're going to this college, you're going to that college, but no one would even ask me if I was even applying.
Yeah.
So it was a total, I guess, underestimation of my abilities, or even the need for me to go to college.
And you were a straight A student as well.
Yes. So I didn't understand, I guess, the type of preconceived notion that I couldn't make it to college.
But in your mind, was there any question that you would go?
In my mind, it was not even a question. It was more like a question of why no one encouraged me. And at that point, only, I guess, like I said, Mrs. Marie Boston, she encouraged me to go to college.
There's a teacher again.
She even said yes. And again, another one very special to me is my guidance counselor, Mrs. Fran Dummett.
Yeah.
Her son was a Meyerhoff Scholar. That means it's a scholarship that's provided with, their full 4 years with room and board and tuition.
Yeah.
Everything is paid for. And she told me about the program. She encouraged me to apply for the Meyerhoff Scholarship. She actually took me to the University of Maryland, my college now, Baltimore County. She gave me a tour. She told her son to come talk to me. I mean, she was really enthusiastic and encouraging to tell me to apply because her son did it. And if her son can do it, I could also do it, right?
Yeah,
she treated me like a daughter. She wanted me to succeed. She was very passionate about helping others also succeed. Yeah. So that helped me to apply to college at UMBC and apply for the Meyerhoff Scholarship.
Yeah.
And, from there, I applied and I received it. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah, and that was a beginning.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your scholarships and fellowships on your webpage, and it's very impressive. We'll have that linked in our show notes as well.
Okay, thank you.
That produced a lot of research, like your research, your record, publications are very impressive, and you don't have your PhD yet, which is like you are gearing up. You're still at the gearing up stage. You are getting there.
So I guess I want to say, like, we need people throughout our life to open doors for us, because that can only give us the next path forward. Yeah. That'll help us to make a contribution to science and technology.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good of you pointing that out, because I'm thinking of, the maker education, as we call it, which is a type of education that students, or learners, I should say, not students, but learners, guide the learning, but they always depend on mentors. And mentors, like a broad definition for a person that is there to help out. And you can see how, in your case, these people made a huge difference in your life. And we're a lot of people, it seems, not just one or two, but even just a single person can make a huge difference in a person's life. And I think that's what we always need to remember as teachers when we are dealing with students, that we can make a big difference.
Right, even a simple idea can make a big impact.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you just to look at your future, right? What is your biggest project right now? And if you think, say, 5 years from now, what do you see in terms of new assistive technology that either you develop or somebody else perhaps, that will make a real difference in your life and other people? with these severe physical disabilities?
Right. My ultimate goal is for a robotic device to be in my home, so I can be independent as possible. And there's also another robotic device in either the aging or another person with a disability, so I can help them. So it's the opportunity to help somebody can really bring a great amount of satisfaction
Yeah.
to me, because I've always been helped, but I've never had many opportunities to help others.
Yes.
So I really crave that in my life.
Yes.
Like I want to help somebody, right? So I imagine in the near future there will be a robotic arm that can safely reposition my arm and leg through my own control. And I would be able to do that independently without a caregiver's assistance.
Yeah. I wonder in the future, how do we think about home assistive robots? Like, will it be like a humanoid robot that walks around with us, like a butler and does things, or dedicated robots? So we have one in the kitchen that is specialized in cooking and picking things out of cupboards. We've got one in the bedroom that helps us get in and out of bed. So one in the bathroom, I guess. Would that be more likely?
Right. I guess there could be more. It could depend on the user's needs. Definitely, because there are different applications. Or this one humanoid robot can perform different applications throughout the home and even outside as well.
Yeah.
Because there are so many needs that we have and so many aspects of life that a robot could help us with. So everything is needed, and in time, I know everything will be here in the near future.
Yeah. I guess I'm not sure if you're familiar with Battlestar Galactica. It's a TV series in which the robots rise against the humans and destroy humanity. And there's a lot of movies out like that. Very entertaining. But, it seems like we need robots in education, in our homes, in our factories, in our cars. Can we survive without them?
Self-driving cars will be
Yeah.
really wonderful. That I can't drive a car,
Yes.
but if I want to go to the store, I can get in the car and go to the store, get my things, come back home. So it really gives the person more control of their lives
Independence.
without relying on others, right? And the reason I stress on independence, but it doesn't mean I want to be alone. That's different. I want to be able to take care of my own needs. That's the really aspect I'm looking at.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, just to come back to education. In your situation, you experienced the educational system, in your case in the US, but Australia would be similar, and other places in Europe perhaps would be similar. You experienced the educational system as a person with special needs. Could you think back and just come up with a few points that, in your case, the system did really well, and other areas where the system could be improved? Because I just wanted to mention that a lot of teachers are listening to the podcast, to this particular episode, and it'd be really good to hear from somebody like you about things that they can improve in their schools, or in the way that they work with their own students who may have physical disabilities.
Right. I guess I want to also share, after I went to college, it was challenging for me because in high school I was given an assistant that would be hired through the school to come and help me in class. If to reposition my arms, take notes for me, things of that sort. The school provided that for me.
Wow.
In college, though, I was not provided that. It was a big shock to me. So my mom had to come with me, sit in all the classes, and take me to classes and stay with me. So one aspect of the college experience that could be improved worldwide is silent assistant could come with the person with a disability or the students to help them.
Yeah.
That's one aspect I think could be very helpful.
Until we have robots, right?
Yes, until the robots come.
Yeah.
Right. And as my health got worse over time, it was difficult for me to even go on campus.
Yeah.
And at that point, that was the first semester of grad school. When I started my Ph.D., it was very discouraging to me because I want to really do this PhD, but my health was in a very bad condition that I couldn't go to campus. So I felt there was no hope for me, and I had no choice but to quit. And I was very fortunate that my professor, Dr. Charles Nicholas, he came up with the idea that I could connect through Skype to attend classes.
Wow. Simple. Yeah.
Very simple, and the technology is available, but that idea did not come across to any other professor but him.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's technology that helps.
Yes.
Are there any technologies that can assist today's technology available, not in the future, at any level, whether you are at university, or whether you are at a school or classroom like elementary school, things like Skype?
Right. So I encourage teachers to be flexible and open-minded and come up with creative solutions to assist their students to succeed. It doesn't have to be the traditional way of teaching or learning.
Yeah.
Just any way to learn. That's the basic, thing we want, right? We want to be able to learn. And it can be in any unique way as possible. And after that, Skype was wonderful. And helping to get the same accommodation to other professors, sometimes that was very challenging. Some professors, they didn't see that they had to teach by Skype or that they had to have me on Skype to attend the class. So that was, again, another discouraging experience because it's up to the professors to decide whether they can do it or not. And I was very fortunate that most of the classes that I attended, the professors were very understanding and accommodating.
It's probably the most important thing, right? It's probably more important than any assistive technology is to have the understanding of the people around you.
Right, and just basic empathy to understand my desire to learn, and technology is ready. They just have to understand the situation a little to help me a little bit. And, I was then, my classes were over, I finished all my classes. I was at the stage of preparing for my thesis proposal. And during I think that year I was writing my thesis proposal, I had the opportunity to take part in the UBCOM conference where they had to do a telepresence study. And I think among 200 people, only 5 were chosen. And I was fortunate to be chosen among those 5 to take part in that telepresence study to try the beam and by suitable technologies.
I'm looking at one of your photos in which there is a monitor on a robot with wheels. That robot can move around.
Yes.
Basically, that robot is your body, and you're able to do telepresence through that robot.
Yes.
It's got a camera on it.
So it's like an avatar.
Yeah.
Yes. So the beam is like my avatar. It's an extension of my body. So I can be at any remote location. So the first time I experienced it, I was standing like 5 feet tall. I was able to see somebody at eye level. That was a very unique experience for me because I never had the ability to stand. So
I'm looking at a representative article of how you influence other people with your work, and it's from a publication called The Voice of Specially Abled People. I like the name.
Yes.
So the headline is Kavita Krishnaswamy, who's inspiring the PM of India to make it more accessible. And there's some videos there as well that show you in telepresence mode with the beam device. And it's also mentioning that you met with the Indian ambassador in San Francisco, demonstrated how the device works, right? That's amazing.
I was trying to, my big goal is to increase accessibility worldwide, because in the U.S. we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, with mandates, that we have ramps, curb cuts, captions and videos, all sorts of accessibility that can increase more active lifestyles for people. So I hope that can be a worldwide, feature that can everywhere we have accessibility.
I can see that being useful not just for people with physical disabilities, but for everyone. And literally, you can be everywhere at the same time.
Yes, definitely.
With your mechanical, electronic body as well, but your senses are there. And it's just I think, a very promising technology there.
Yes.
That's great. I think I'd like to ask you a few quick questions in a way. We're just switching into a different segment, which we call rapid fire questions. So I'd like to ask you if you have a person that comes to mind that has been the most influential in the way that, well, you do your research in your case, since you are a researcher, but also if you thought about teaching in the future, or perhaps you are already teaching other students, a person who has influenced you in teaching.
Teaching and research, I'm really influenced by my advisor, Dr. Tim Oates. He's a great mentor, and I'm really inspired by his ability to teach and also do research.
What is his method of teaching?
I guess his method is he spends time with the students. That's the first
Simple.
thing. All right.
Patience.
He's dedicated to patience, and he makes sure that you understand first instead of just lecturing.
Yeah.
So that's very important, right?
Yes.
I mean, some I feel just want to do the lecture and finish the class.
Go home. Yeah.
Right. So I think that type of dedication is really needed, and that really inspires me.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. The next question that I typically ask our guests brings in answers such as Evernote or Google Docs or YouTube and things like that. I suspect that your answer is going to be very different. So here it is. What app can you not live without?
YouTube, I guess. I guess YouTube is great. I use it as a learning platform.
Oh, there you
I
go.
can't say YouTube.
No, yeah,
Can I
you
say
can.
YouTube?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to
Because
be
I really...
to be perfectly honest, I thought you were probably going to say something like voice recognition, artificial intelligence, or mind control, so you can control your robotic arms or something like that. But YouTube is definitely one of my favorites.
Because I have to learn, right?
Yes. Great. Can you do, I guess, an assistive technology that might be very useful there would be to be able to control the computer cursor so that you can type by thinking. I'm not sure if anybody's doing that, but that would be very awesome,
Yes.
right? Instead of typing, to just think a query.
Yes. The brain-computer interface that I've used, I'm exploring right now opportunities to use the BCI to, control the robotic arm to move it. So definitely to also control mouse movements.
Yeah.
It's also a very possible option. And also, the standard webcam. If I'm trying to create a neural network based on recordings of where our head moves, to use that as an inference to move the mouse.
Right, okay.
So just by using computer vision and machine learning together, I'm trying to find a way if we can use the mouse cursor to control the robotic arm and also to type and just move the mouse for browsing.
So it would be like teaching another human, if I blink once, press a space bar. If I blink twice, do that. If I move my head this way and blink my eye, do that. And then you can translate all that into text entry or instructions to the computer.
Yes, and also just looking up, you can move the mouse up, looking right and left, just based on your eye gaze and also your head movements. And simple gestures like, winking or smiling can click the mouse.
So as Jamie would say in Mythbusters, that is definitely plausible. He can do it. Okay, here's another question. What advice would you give to educators, so the teachers who have students with special physical disabilities in the classroom? Like one or two things that they can do to really change the life of that student?
Make it more inclusive. Like make sure that they have the ability to interact with other students in class. Like I mentioned, building the robot for my robotic class in high school. Yeah,
absolutely. I think inclusion, making, having the feeling that you belong here, right, is probably the most important thing to do in learning. Once a student feels that they don't belong, it's just impossible, or very hard at least, to learn anything.
And have high expectations as well.
Yeah.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah, you can do more than you think. Exactly.
Right. Like people did not expect me to go to college. That was discouraging. So if you expect me to go to college, that would make me work even harder and be a better student.
And just imagine the loss if you hadn't actually gone to college, if your teacher didn't say that you can do it. Right? The loss would be tremendous for everyone.
I don't think it just should.
Yeah.
One more thing is not just work focusing on classroom assignments and projects, but giving them real world experiences is also very important, I think.
Engaging problems are usually real world problems because you can see the effects they have in the world here.
Right.
Since you are an engineer, essentially, I'd like to know what kind of programming languages you use for your artificial intelligence robotics projects.
So I've used Python, OpenCV, what else? A lot of machine learning algorithms. I've used neural networks.
Do you think that for somebody that wants to learn AI, would Python be a good place to begin, at least?
Yes, definitely.
Because you can do it.
Python is great.
Python is not just where you start, I guess, like this is where you can end as well.
It's the best for AI.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Python is very good. And even now, if they want to learn web interfaces as well, like JavaScript, that also is helping. They have a lot of machine learning libraries now available in JavaScript.
In JavaScript. And of course, OpenCV is a library for anything to do with image.
Yes.
And it is accessible via Python as well, right? There are Python libraries for OpenCV.
Yeah, OpenCV is available for Python and JavaScript as well.
JavaScript, yeah. I've got to say it's one of the things that I want to learn because I've got an interest in Raspberry Pi applications, and I want to start developing content for the Raspberry Pi that does visual processing. And I'm learning now. Yes, that's awesome.
And Java,
JavaScript, C++,
Java.
Yeah. Oh, Java.
JavaScript, and Java,
Yeah. Java is different to JavaScript.
Yes.
People confuse that. Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Let's see. I think we're just about out of time. So I'd like to ask you for any parting thoughts for our listeners. Now, it could have to do with your life as a roboticist, your life as a student, not necessarily as a student with special physical needs, just a student, that's it, or as your life as a teacher, or all of the together. Basically, anything goes. What would you like to tell our listeners?
Everybody has a unique ability to contribute to the world. We just have to find a way to recognize our unique skills and develop it, and always keep learning throughout your life. Learning does not end in the classroom. It only begins in the classroom and continues throughout your life. So
that's great.
Work hard and do your best and keep learning.
Keep learning. That's what life is about. I often think about it. What is the meaning of life? And I think it's learning. It could be 64 as well, but...
And don't be discouraged by disappointments. I guess disappointments are a way of life. We have to find ways to cope with our disappointments, in a healthy manner by finding solutions and thinking of creative solutions and working with others to help us.
Yeah.
Instead of, arguing or fighting that doesn't go anywhere, but trying to be cooperative, trying to share your ideas in a healthy manner and getting the cooperation of everyone so that we can learn together to solve the problem, I think will bring a more positive impact.
Can you only imagine the impact if you switch your mindset of seeing problems and failures as problems, and you switch to another opportunity to learn something? And not only that, but I'm going to share my learning from this failure with other people so that we can move forwards together. Like, just imagine at a big scale, the effect of that in the world. So I guess teachers should also be careful to show that failing is okay, and as long as you make good use of your failing.
If you use your failure as a way to learn and improve, that's the best way.
Yeah. How can people get in touch with you?
Yes, through email, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. My links are on the podcast, I guess, podcast webpage.
Yes, we'll put them in the show notes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And I look forward to hearing from everyone about their ideas and any ways we can increase robotic advancement.
We're doing our best. Education, I think, is the key. Well, thank you, Kavita. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I learned a lot out of this hour with you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate, Peter, for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kavita. That's all for this episode. The notes for this episode that include links to many of the resources mentioned and information on how to get in touch with Kavita are available on our website, techexplorations.com/p/Stemiverse. Each episode comes with its own page on the Tech Explorations website and a goldmine of information in the notes. This Stemiverse podcast episode was produced by Tech Explorations. Do you have any questions or suggestions? Would you like to nominate a friend or colleague to be our guest? Please email us at pa@texplore.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for the name of our podcast, Stemiverse. That's STEMIVERSE. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.